When dealing with a narcissist, have you ever thought to yourself, what is this person thinking? Or what is going through this person's head? Or how could this person treat me like this? In this video, I'm going to do my best to give my best explanation of how narcissists really feel inside and what it feels like to be a narcissist in day-to-day life. And hopefully this can shine some light on some of their behaviors and how it is that they're able and compelled to act the way that they do. Welcome to Looking Behind the Mirror, where we explore narcissism and take our lives back as we make sense out of nonsense. As a quick disclaimer, everything I say is based on my opinions and my personal experiences. I'm not a professional, and if you're really struggling, I encourage you to seek professional help. I am providing links below for you. It's easy to look at the behavior of a narcissist and view their inner workings very simply. Many of us simply view them as some kind of supervillain, some kind of evil mastermind that's just trying to make life miserable for everybody. But it really isn't that simple, and the complex and bewildering behavior of a narcissist has a lot more going on behind the scenes. I almost think that looking at them as some kind of evil villain gives them too much credit. Now, some of them certainly are evil, some of them certainly are villains, but like I said, I think it's a lot more complicated than that, especially when we're talking about the vast majority of them. I'm going to start this video with the simplest surface type emotions and gradually get a little more complex and a little deeper into how it feels to be a narcissist. And of course, I can't tell you from firsthand experience how it feels to be a narcissist, assuming that I'm not one, but this is what I've gathered over the years that I've gotten to know several very narcissistic people, and after everything that I've read, everything that I've considered, and everything that I've witnessed, this is my best explanation and what I truly believe most narcissists feel like in day-to-day life. The first and most obvious thing that narcissists are feeling almost constantly is anger. And this was actually the topic of my very first YouTube video on this channel, is why are narcissists so angry all the time, or something like that. And this anger comes from having to face reality constantly. I mean, narcissists unfortunately do live in the real world, so they're having to constantly run into reality, and reality is often clashing with their fantasies, and this can cause a lot of anger for them. You know, when things aren't happening the way they're supposed to be happening in the narcissist's imagination, that's a perfectly good reason to become enraged. When their fantasy isn't manifesting in front of their eyes, they've been wronged. They have a right to fly off the handle, right? Another reason that they are angry all the time is that they imagine that they've been wronged when they haven't. So sometimes their fantasy world is overlaid over the real world and they can't even tell the difference. They're not even being forced to face reality. They believe that you or that person over there is out to get them somehow, or is just waiting to try to trick them or take something away from them. They also interpret the things you say, the things you do, as a personal attack on them. And even if you're not doing something right now that's personally offensive to them, they're pretty sure you're about to. They also are angry when they lose control of people. They feel entitled to use other people as pawns in their fantasy world. Other people are supposed to do whatever it is they're doing in the narcissist's fantasy world. So when people start doing their own thing, people start making their own decisions and being autonomous, this is infuriating. Close your eyes, unless you're driving, don't close your eyes if you're driving, but close your eyes and imagine that you live in a world where you're grocery shopping and you get to the checkout, and as the cashier's checking you out, she just starts eating some cookies out of some cookies you're buying. She just opens the package and starts eating them. And she's still checking you out, and you're like, what are you doing? I'm entitled to those cookies. I'm buying them. Those are mine, right? And the cashier's like, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten in a couple hours. And you're like, well, how's that my problem? Those are my cookies, right? And you call the manager down, and the manager's like, dude, lighten up. What? She's hungry. Can't you see she's hungry? But you can't share a couple cookies? Like, I know this is like a ridiculous example, but think of how you would feel if that really started happening to you, and if everyone around you was acting like you were crazy for getting upset. And then imagine that the manager threatens to call the cops if you don't leave with your half bag of cookies you just paid for. You'd be pretty upset, right? Imagine how you would feel if this was your experience and nobody was taking you seriously and everybody was acting like you getting upset was unreasonable. Nobody seemed to understand why you were upset, and you couldn't have the things that you were entitled to have. And people were trying to take things from you. That's kind of how the narcissist feels 24/7. They constantly feel like they're being robbed, like they're being wronged, like people are going to take something away from them the first chance they get. People are trying to trick them. Nobody's validating the way that they feel, because the way they feel is usually pretty outrageous and unreasonable and completely disproportionate to the situation. But they feel that way for reasons, and to them, they're perfectly valid reasons, even though to the rest of us, it just looks crazy. Imagine feeling this kind of injustice when nothing bad is actually happening around you. It's really all in your head. So this is a reason that narcissists feel constantly frustrated. They feel a little helpless in some ways, which is why they're so compelled to try to control everything and everyone, because in a way they feel like they have no control over anything, and it's just like this black or white thing. Either they're able to micromanage and control every little thing that anyone around them does, or they feel like they have absolutely no control and no relevance in the world at all. And of course, I can't make this video without talking about the paranoia that narcissists feel almost all the time. And this paranoia partially comes from their self-centeredness, partially from the feeling that they are the center of the universe and that everything revolves around them. Imagine that you have bright green hair and you go to the grocery store, and I don't know, depending on where you live in the world, maybe that wouldn't be such a weird thing, but where I live, if you went to the grocery store with bright green hair, you would be quite conspicuous, and probably a lot of people would stare at you. So, I mean, if that's a normal thing where you live, imagine you have a hat on your head that's 2 feet tall and you go to the grocery store. Imagine how you would feel walking into the grocery store. Really try to capture that feeling of knowing that everyone's going to notice you. Everyone's looking at you. Everyone's paying attention. And now imagine that on a good day, maybe you really like your bright green hair. You think it looks amazing, and you imagine that everyone's looking at your bright green hair and everybody is envious of you. They think it looks pretty good and they wish their hair looked like that. Or they're jealous of your 2 foot tall hat and they wish they had one like that. So imagine how that would feel on a good day, that you know everyone's paying attention to you and everybody's noticing how great you look or how awesome you are, and everybody wishes that they were you. And then maybe on a bad day, you're actually a little more self-conscious. Maybe on a bad day, you're feeling a little more anxiety about everybody looking at you. And maybe on these days, you're feeling that paranoia. You know that these people are gonna try to steal your hat or they're gonna try to do something because they're all looking at you. They're all noticing you. They're all thinking about you. You're the center of the universe. And as great as that might be sometimes to a narcissist, it can actually be really uncomfortable and scary sometimes too, even though it's really all in their imagination. But it's one reason that they don't trust anybody ever, because they're constantly on guard. They constantly know that everybody's out to get them, everybody's thinking about them. And it's also a reason that they can do such cruel things to other people seemingly unprovoked. They're trying to beat you to the punch because they just know that you're out to get them. They just know that you're just waiting for an opportunity to steal their stuff or steal their traits or somehow make them look bad, so they'll beat you to the punch so that you can't do that. And of course, another thing that pathological narcissists feel 24/7 is a very, very deep feeling of shame. But this feeling of shame is something that's usually buried very deeply. It's something that most of them aren't even aware of, but it's always there, and it's something that is always affecting their behavior. Everything that they do really is an act of trying to run away from this deep feeling of shame. And as I've explained in other videos, this shame is not the result of anything they've actually done. They don't feel any guilt or remorse for any of the things they've ever actually done to people, even though, ironically, those are the things that they should probably feel guilty about. This is deep, deep pathological shame about who they are fundamentally. This is something that is a very important part of their narcissism. This is really what causes everything that they do. It's this belief that they are not good enough, that everyone really is going to see through their facade and see that they really are this pathetic, worthless, irrelevant piece of garbage, that everybody that's paying attention to them, since they're the center of the universe, is going to somehow, if they're not careful, see through the facade and see the truth, the awful, awful truth of who they really are. And that's why narcissists are constantly defending themselves against things that aren't happening, taking offense to things that weren't meant to offend them, and lashing out at people that haven't even done anything to them. They're constantly trying to guard this awful feeling that they have about themselves. They're constantly trying to keep people at arm's length so nobody can actually see this terrible, awful human being that they're not even really consciously aware that they believe that they are. I think I've mentioned this before on this channel, but I knew a very narcissistic person that I was very close to for several years, that actually shared with me something that after I cut off contact with this person, I actually saw described in several other places. And I just think that this is a really, really interesting phenomenon, a really intriguing and kind of tragic way that pathological narcissists feel their inner landscape. So the person that I personally knew described to me that they felt like they were constantly being stalked in a way by an entity that they called a wolf, and that this wolf kind of was part of them, lived inside of them, and was constantly trying to get them, trying to destroy them. It was like constantly being pursued by this very dark entity that was always out to get them. And on top of this, and sort of part of this, was a black hole. This person described their inner soul really as a giant black hole, and they said that they had a constant feeling that they were trying to suck something out of the external world around them. And this person described it and actually went like this, like constantly sucking something from the external world and never being satisfied. So when this person described this to me, I had no idea what to make of it. I didn't know what narcissism was. And this person certainly didn't identify as a narcissist. Narcissism was never part of any of this conversation. I think this person did know that they did have some emotional problems, but they had no idea the scope of it. And I'm sure that they haven't really done anything about it or looked any further into it. But I remember when I heard this described, I was just totally bewildered. And I was actually kind of sad to think that there are people in the world that have such a dark inner landscape and that actually feel that way. Really, this person felt trapped in this experience. This was how this person felt 24 hours a day. Like they were running away from this wolf that they referred to. And this wolf would make this person or compel this person to do certain things that was part of this trying to suck something out of the external world. So this person was just stuck constantly trying to satisfy the appetite of this black hole in order to keep 2 steps ahead of this wolf that was constantly pursuing them. I know this probably sounds really bizarre, but this was honestly exactly what a person told me they really felt like every single day of their life. I knew another extremely narcissistic person that also constantly referred to feeling like there were wheels turning in their head, like they just couldn't ever sit and relax. Wheels constantly turning in their head, and the only time they ever really felt like they could rest was when they were asleep. And that kind of goes hand in hand. Other things I've read about this wolf and this black hole kind of entity and this emptiness have been different variations of it, where sometimes it's an entity like a wolf or some kind of beast, or sometimes it's just the feeling that you're running away from something, or the feeling that something bad is about to happen. So it can be perceived in a lot of different ways for pathologically narcissistic people. But this was my experience. This is what I was told by the people that I actually knew. Any way you cut it though, the bottom line is that narcissists are absolutely consumed by the way they feel. They really get no rest, no peace. They are in a constant feeling of chaos. And this is why they have no room for you. They have no energy or time or space to even consider your existence. And this is why it's not your job to fix this. And even if it was, you couldn't fix it. And trying to give anything of yourself to help these people is such an enormous waste of your life, because if you could understand how little you mean to the narcissist, you would never consider sacrificing anything for them, especially considering that you cannot help them. Everything that you give up of yourself, everything that you sacrifice, just goes down that big black hole that's in the middle of their soul. It just disappears and it goes nowhere, and it just is a complete waste for you and the narcissist. It doesn't do anyone any good. The narcissist is so consumed with their own existence and their own problems and their own ego that they don't even understand the fullness of your existence. They don't even recognize that you exist as an autonomous person. You are not really a part of their world. So why would you sacrifice yourself for somebody that can't even recognize that you exist? I hope this helps. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment below any ideas you have for me for future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like this video and would like to see more like it in the future. Until next time, thanks. Bye.